Babuji Maharaj used to say so much about Lalaji Maharaj that I had one regret, that I coexisted with Lalaji Maharaj for the last 5 years of his life and yet never managed to see him. I mean, people might smile or laugh because what could a baby of 5 do with the great master? But suppose I had been exposed to him and merely having been looked at by him would have made a big difference. I mean, I'm saying this without disrespect to Babuji Maharaj or to what he has conferred upon me. Because Babuji used to praise him and show his love for him in so many different ways that I have felt this as a definite spiritual loss in my own life. Subsequently, of course, perhaps Lalaji Maharaj in his own way, in his grace, compensated for this by appearing to me in some experiences I have related in my books on 1 or 2 occasions. And Babuji was so enormously pleased. He said, Dekho, today you have had Lalaji's darshan, and few have it. On the first occasion, I was walking through a tunnel, and the other end of the tunnel was like a pinpoint of light. As I proceeded at the speed of light almost, that pinpoint widened and became the exit. And I came out, and there was an enormous crystal ball. And in it I saw first Babuji Maharaj, then Lalaji Maharaj in a golden frame, visage, not a frame in the sense of picture frame, but as if he was made of gold but smiling and in his usual pose, his serene pose. Babuji changed to Lalaji, and finally Lalaji changed into myself. Not like a reflection, with my right ear appearing as the left ear there, not that, but as if I am there myself. Later Babuji told me, this is the secret of spirituality, that when you search for him, you find yourself. Therefore it is called divine revelation, also self-revelation. Divine realization is self-realization, because the self, with a capital S, is our real self, and the other self, which we refer to as myself, is the gross, worldly self, made up of matter, mind, leaving the soul separate. Which means that the normal human being lives without the soul coming into play in his life. The soul acts as a silent witness, and as the Purusha Sukta of the Upanishad Vedas says, he is eternally there in the form of a tiny atomic flame. See? And he has to be awakened to our life. Otherwise, he passes through life after life as our eternal companion. That's why God is also called the eternal companion. But he is a companion who is asleep, Sushupt. So spirituality, and especially the first sitting of the Master when he touches and awakens that, then this becomes, this inner self, the higher self, awakens and takes up the reins, as it were, provided we are willing to hand it over to him. Then he becomes that famous figure in the Gita. There's the chariot, there is Arjuna, and there's the Krishna, Lord Krishna driving the chariot. It is a symbolism that now the soul, which is a part of the divine itself, the ultimate divinity, has taken charge, and the man sitting inside is the man whose life is being driven. See? So we can say such lives are God-driven, divine purpose-driven, driven to a divine destination. Because as Lord Krishna says in the Gita, if you go in this way, along the path indicated by me. You shall reach that Paramdhama or that ultimate abode, having reached which nobody returns. Yad gatva nanivartante tadhava paramam mama, he says in Sanskrit, you see. So that is the purpose of the Purusha. We also call the higher self the Purusha, and our soul is but an amsha of that Purusha, a part of that Purusha, an atomic presence of the ultimate Purusha, which we should hand over control to on the day we are inducted into Sahaj Marg. And that handing over is called surrender. It's nothing more, you see. It doesn't mean I lose myself, I annihilate myself, like the Western people always talk, ask. Does it not mean self-annihilation? Not at all. It only means handing over charge of yourself to somebody who can guide and control your life in the way it should be run, just thus removing your responsibilities in the matter, so that you can serenely go, like a man in a train or a plane. He doesn't worry about how it is going, where it is going, because he knows the destination is there. So for this reason, I had felt, that if I had been blessed by being presented before Lalaji Maharaj, my spiritual journey may have been awakened much earlier. Instead of waiting till 28 years of age, I would have started it perhaps even before my 5th year, you see. Because like people used to bring babies to Babaji Maharaj to be blessed. What is the purpose? It's not to say blessed. No. It is that his divine gaze may fall upon the child and awaken this. Because before 18 we are not allowed to meditate. So spirituality begins before we can start the practice of spirituality as adults. That is the idea of blessing a child or blessing a mother even before she has been delivered of her baby. You see how deep spirituality goes. Because when we go back into spiritual lives, we find that so many past lives have been undergone, in which we had opportunities which we either missed or which we lost. And then we are here. And at least in this life, we should not go. Because Adi Shankara says, 3 things of which few can dream even. See. To be born in this Bhuloka, the world of human beings, from where only liberation is possible. From no other world is liberation possible. To be born at the same time as a great Guru who is alive on our planet, present on our planet. Second blessing. Because you may be born when no Guru is available, no such presence is available, no such help is available. And the third and most important, having him there and you here, to be able to go to him, accept him as your master and surrender to him. These 3 are the greatest blessings that can be given by God to a soul which is a seeking soul. And I assume, you see, every one of our Abhyasis has been blessed like this. And if they still miss the opportunity, it is only their self-will which is dominant, which says, I don't need assistance. Self-will manifesting as egotism, as independence, as I can do it, that sort of feeling. And of course, the final expression is, why do I need anybody's help? We were watching a presentation on DVD yesterday of something like a debate between, who was that guy? The psychologist. C.S. Lewis and who was that? Sigmund Freud. Both became atheists. Lewis because of his life experience, because he lost his father very early in life, and things like that, or mother, and things like that. And Freud, who came to true science and said religion cannot explain so many things, as if science can. See? There's a famous saying which says, science can only say how things happen. It cannot ask the question why. It cannot answer. Chlorophyll is green. Why is chlorophyll green? It cannot answer. Why not 3 legs? We have not come across anything with 3 legs, except stools. 2 legs, 4 legs, 6 legs, centipedes, but no 3 legs, except in novels of science fiction. So you see, science, to think that science answers all questions is a sort of, shall we say, a superstition in itself. And I remember once Dr. Varadachari explained superstition as coming from 2 words, super and stitia. Something standing on something else to take, the authority of that on which it is standing. So we stand on science and claim that science has no superstition. Babuji dispelled this in one of my early talks with him. He said in science there is more superstition than in religion. Religion, at least, there are valid superstitions which help us. Like you pray to God, you get some relief. But in science, there is no relief ever, you see. A man goes mad and there is no relief. Science says how he became mad. I mean, it attempts. He had this trauma, he had that trauma, but it can do nothing more. So we have to be very careful about how we handle science. And that is why Babuji said right from the beginning, throw away the intellect if you want to be a spiritual person. The intellect has no place in an abhyasi's life. For your mundane requirements, whether I should buy potatoes or cheese, whether I should marry this girl or that girl, whether I should go to Germany for a job or to Tokyo, for these you use your brain power to the extent possible. Because there also something called destiny intervenes, and that is his plan, which is against your plan maybe, or supporting your plan perhaps. So Babuji once told me that all accidents are divine plans, whereas everything we plan can become an accident here. Somebody decides to go from say Argentina to Peru, and his plane crashes. Like 2 days back, we had a tremendous plane crash there. What happens? His plan went awry, as they say in English literature. The plans, the best of plans laid by mice and men oft go awry. Anything from mice to men, he says. Don't depend on your plans. That is why, sometimes I have been criticized by Westerners especially, that you don't keep up your plans. I have always maintained my plans. But they are, they think Indians are always late, Indian times are always late, whereas it's the opposite. You go to Germany and the plane is 2.5 hours late, oh, it must have been thundering over Frankfurt. Yes, so everybody picks up his apple and sausage and goes into the plane, smiling, because Germany planes are not late. What can you do if there's a thunderstorm? But if it is like this weather in India and a plane is late, in India, immer, which means always, always. That is the white man's, arrogance. That even when a train is late, in Europe it is on time. Because it's not the train's fault, something interfered with it. You understand? So, we must understand one thing, that every action of ours, whether we surrender or not, is controlled. The nearest thing approaching this sort of life is the cosmonaut's life. Every action of his, from sleeping to taking his nourishment to defecating, is controlled by ground control somewhere. He wakes up on time, he eats on time, he goes to the toilet on time. He cannot waver from it for even 1 minute. Ting, he is awake. Report. Eat. And you get to something squeezed into your mouth, like awful toothpaste, not even good paste. It smells and tastes like some other things, But they have to take it. They have been trained. No, go to the toilet. You cannot say, I cannot. Do it. Yes, boss. No, that is not surrender. See, that is technological greatness, soundness, and genius. that you have been trained for 2-3 years and you are now in a vehicle which is extra terrestrial and which is going around orbiting the sun. And behold, there is a God on earth who is controlling my actions, every action. But fortunately, he is not God, it is ground control. See? So the Western mind can acquire and accept strictest control possible, provided it is not a divine order, but a human order. We are trained on the contrary to accept a divine order and suspect a human order, because human orders are based on human thinking, human aspirations, human longings, and the human desire for acquisition. And of course, the inherent tendency in human beings to rob, to steal. Expansionist tendencies. I want more territory. You have Alexander the Great. How he became the great is some mystery, you know. Then you have Hitler, you have Mussolini. And you have the expansionists in America, the white people who invaded an ancient land and drove the local people out. And then you have the expansionists in other countries, you see. For instance, we had the Mughals in India who ruled us for, I don't know, 400 years, something like that. And then came the British, 250 years. And now, of course, we are independent, where we are misruling ourselves, because our rulers don't listen to the voice of God. They listen to their own inner so-called voice, or so-called inner voice, which tells them, aspire for position, become the next prime minister. You will do good, you know. It reminds me of that guy in The Lord of the Rings who has obsessed the king, you know, the king of that horse country. What's his name? Of Rohan, Theoden, king. Why do you corrupt a mind already so badly affected? No. And the king is already possessed, you see. So we are taught to beware of even governments. Be careful with governments. Obey the law, because that is implied in every legal situation. You have to obey it. But as Babuji said, follow with discrimination even the master. The thing which brought me closest to my master was something about responsibility, you know, obedience. He said obedience cannot be a total thing. Obedience must conform to 4 principles of which Lalaji Maharaj spoke. He said, you see how great Lalaji was. He provided for all situations. In Sahaj Marg, there is no automatic rule that you obey everything the master says. I said, under what circumstances are we allowed not to obey? He said, if the order that the master gives you goes against your shastras, your religious tradition, if it goes against your scriptures, you know, if it goes against your own conscience. 3 things. In such cases, you have a right to disobey the master. Of course, I took it with a pinch of salt, because at the highest levels of spirituality, even these don't apply. That is my conviction. I am not going beyond what Lalaji Maharaj stipulated. That is applicable only up to a certain level. Like even in civil law, you don't like wars, you refuse to participate in a war. You can say, I will not fight, but you have to take the consequence, you go to jail. You know. So there are situations where obedience is implicit, and if you disobey even at that stage, there is a punishment. But as we say in Tamil, what came up to the head only took the turban. See? So Babuji said, you know, on one occasion he was given an order, and he tried and tried, but he couldn't do it. First day, Lalaji frowned, you know. He came, he said, Ramchandar, 1 day has gone. He said, Your Holiness, I am aware of it. Second day, it was not done. Lalaji Maharaj appeared. Lalaji, you know, Ramchandar, do you know 2 days have passed? He said, Huzur, which means holiness or your greatness. I am aware of it. Third day he said, you have disobeyed me for 3 days and frowned upon me, you see. Now Babuji used to say, he frowned upon me. I said, what happened? I said, Guru Maharaj, you can give me whatever punishment you desire. That was the highest surrender, you know. Lalaji smiled and said, I knew you would not be able to do this. I will do it myself. On another occasion, he carried out the order. And he had to go hungry because when he reached his destination, he found all the shops, restaurants, everything was closed. Some result of his own work. And he said, look here, I have to go hungry, though I obeyed his order. So when Guru's order goes against nature's edicts, Guru is of course supreme. He is the ruling authority in the living present. Nature's orders are blind orders. He obeyed, but he had to pay the price, which was a minuscule thing, you know, for which somebody else may have had 30 years of prison. He had to fast 20. So, obeying the Master can never be at a loss to ourselves. We gain his approbation, his happiness. He comes smiling before and says, well done. You see, whereas if you don't obey, Sisyphus, down. I remember one occasion when I had to fast for 5 days, see, in Denmark. He said, Parthasarthi, will you accept what I am going to say? I said, of course, no question of not accepting. He said, I want you to fast tomorrow. I said, for this you are asking so many questions. Done. Next day I fasted. That night he came again. I mean, we were sharing the same room. Before going to bed, he tapped me on the shoulder and said, I have to request. I said, Babuji, please don't embarrass me. He said, I want you to be hungry tomorrow also. I said, yes, why not?